Hello and welcome back to Ancient Ways for Modern Days. My name is Mike Freeman. I'm the pastor at Valley Christian Fellowship in Longview, Washington. Thanks for joining me today as we continue to walk through the New Testament. And today we find ourselves in Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21. Now, what I want to do here today is I want to look at just the first few verses of Luke chapter 21, and then I actually want to give a little bit of a contrast and return to Luke chapter 20 at the very end of it. And here's how I want to set things up for today. I want to set things up for us when we think about why we give. And think about maybe what we give to a church, when we generously give to the church that we're part of. Why do we do it? What are our motives? And what do we give? Let me show you what I mean. Let's jump in. Luke chapter 21. Jesus, it says, he looked up. Now, this is after what happens at the end of chapter 20. We'll go there in a second. It says, Jesus looked up and he saw the rich putting their gifts into the offering box. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. And he said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them," all of these rich people, "for they all contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on." Now, Jesus, here's what he does. He commends this widow, this poor woman. She gives a very insignificant amount in the grand scheme of things. She gives, she offers, and she does it sacrificially. And it's not the amount she gives that is important. What is important is her heart. It's a gesture of sacrificial giving. Equally, it's a gesture of trusting the Lord to provide for her. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to back up to the very end of the previous chapter. Jesus, he had just looked up after he was speaking. Look at what just happened. Verses 45 through 47, chapter 20. It says, "In hearing all of this, the people, he said to his disciples, 'Beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love greetings in the marketplaces and the best seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at feasts, who devour widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers. They will receive the greater condemnation.'" Here's why I wanted to connect these two texts, because the chapter break can allow us to just disconnect what's going on here. But Jesus, at the end of chapter 20, he gives this warning against those who are motivated by what they can gain. They're motivated by the reputation they get with their long prayers and their places of prominence. They're motivated by greed in the way that they will look at someone like a widow. It says they devour their house. They will get their hands, through religious terms sometimes, on just what a widow barely has for their benefit. They approach things looking not for how they can be selfless, not how they can be sacrificial, but how they can gain and how they can really, their esteem can grow. And then you have the widow. Jesus says he looks up and he sees people coming, the rich, and they're giving their money in the offering boxes. And then there's this widow who comes and she gives her last 2 copper coins. Maybe even she is being devoured by those rich religious leaders who are all into themselves. Maybe she is being exploited by those who are the haves, and she's a have-not. But look at what Jesus says. He says that she gave more than all of them because she gave out of her poverty. Well, they gave out of their abundance. She gave sacrificially. She was giving sacrificially, not for what she can gain. We don't know all of her motives. We can have conjecture, we can speculate, but we don't know her motives. What we know is the motives of those who devours widows' houses for their own personal gain. But then the contrast is someone who gives sacrificially. I want us to think about this for a little bit, because I want us to, first of all, each of us should check our own motives. When we give, maybe when we give to a church, maybe when we give to someone in need, are we doing it so that we can be seen as someone who is something? Are we doing this for the reputation of that others will have in their view of us? Are we doing this for ourselves? And then are we giving sacrificially? Are we giving like this widow who gives out of her poverty? Are we giving in a way that we believe so much in the kingdom of God, we want to invest our resources in it? I want to start right there by asking us, how are we giving? But secondly, I want us to ask, how are we paying attention to the needs around us? Part of this story just always breaks my heart a little bit to think about this widow. She's doing what she should be doing. But then in my mind, I'm wondering, what should the community around her be doing? Let's talk about the church. In the church, do we have those who have very little means, who are giving sacrificially? And are we paying attention enough to know that we should be caring for them, regardless if they're giving 2 copper pennies, right? Like, are we paying attention enough to make sure we're not simply devouring? We're not simply taking what is given and using it for whatever reasons or whatever ideas we have, but are we paying attention to those around us in their need? Now, there's a little bit of a rabbit trail we're going down in the way we apply this. The big principle here is, are we giving for show? And are we giving sacrificially? We should be very careful with those things. We should make sure we're not giving for showing off, and that we are giving sacrificially. But the application here is to think also about how giving and even receiving impacts, and think about the community around us. I think the ancient way for the modern day, for you sitting here listening right now, is simply to say, how am I giving? Am I generously giving out of a heart of gratitude and trust in the Lord? But then more than that, look around. Who is in my community that I could be caring for? That I can make sure that it's not a widow with their house being devoured. How can I make sure that those around me are being cared for? As you turn this video off, maybe take a time and just say, Lord, show me how you want me to be giving generously. And then also show me who I should be caring for around me that might go unnoticed.